Last night, I was the first one to report the real story behind Trump's claims on reaching a ceasefire deal with the Houthis or Ansarullah fighters of Yemen. If you remember, I was the first to report that Trump had not told us the whole truth. In fact, contrary to his claims, it was the US which had reached out to the Houthis, begging them to spare US ships in the Red Sea. I had also told you how Trump had thrown war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu under the bus by agreeing to let the Houthis carry out their attacks against Israel in solidarity with Gaza. You can watch my video here in case you missed it. Today, Trump went a step further. He called the Houthis brave and showered praises on them. Now, you know why I was saying in my last video last night that you cannot trust this guy. He is notorious for going back on his words and eat humble pie. And his tone today didn't suggest that he was someone who had an upper hand in the negotiation with the Houthis. Let me play Trump's clip first for you.
Well, we're going to take a look. We're going to take a look. But, we had really a very good, as you know, we had a very good outcome with the Houthis, and we honor their word. I mean, they made a commitment, and we dealt with other countries that were close to them and their surrogates, and we honor all of their words. We'll see what happens, but I think, I believe that hopefully that's over with, and they'll leave the ships alone, just leave those ships alone. But so we do. We take their word for it. It was, we hit them very hard. They had a great capacity to withstand punishment. They took tremendous punishment. And, you could say there's a lot of bravery there. It was amazing what they took. But we honor their commitment and their word. They gave us their word that they wouldn't be shooting ships anymore, and we honor that.
Now, coming back to Janta Ka Reporter's journalism. Within hours of Trump's comments on reaching a ceasefire deal with the Houthis, we reported the real story by carrying the audio clips of one Abdus Salam, the chief negotiator from the Houthi side, who took part in the negotiation mediated by the Sultanate of Oman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كما يعلم الجميع أن اليمن منذ أن أخذ على عاتقه مساندة الشعب الفلسطيني المظلوم، وفي الجولة الثانية بعد منتصف شهر رمضان المبارك، عندما أعلن السيد القائد دخول مرحلة الإسناد بدءا بمحاصرة السفن الإسرائيلية من المرور بالبحر الأحمر، ثم بعد ذلك جاء العدوان الأمريكي وتطورت الأحداث أيضا في غزة. في هذه الجولة كان برسائل عبر الأخوة الأشقاء في سلطنة عمان يطلب أو يعتقد أنه بحملته العسكرية بالإمكان أن يحقق أهدافه من وقف العدوان أو من أن نقبل باستهداف غزة وفلسطين، وأن نتراجع عن إسنادنا لهذا الموقف. وكان رأينا وموقفنا واضحا وصريحا أن عمليات اليمن لا يمكن أن تتوقف، وهناك ظلم كبير وفادح بحق الشعب الفلسطيني المظلوم، وحصار بإدخال المواد والغذاء إلى قطاع غزة. وتوقفت النقاشات بعد ذلك. قرر الأمريكي مطالبته عبر الأخوة في عمان تارة بعد تارة وصولا إلى نقاط لم نتزحزح عن موقفنا قيد أنملة كما هو واضح في موقفنا الآن. بعد ذلك وصلت الجهود التي بذلها وزير الخارجية العماني مع الأمريكان إلى أن تقبلوا الموقف اليمني باستمرار المساندة للشعب الفلسطيني. وموقفنا كان من البداية للأمريكان معلن عبر ما أعلن عنه السيد مرارا وما أصدرناه في مواقف كثيرة، أن الأمريكي حشر نفسه لإسناد الإسرائيلي في الاعتداء على اليمن، وأن موقفنا سيكون الرد عليه وعلى سفنه وبوارجه بحكم أنه هو من بادر بالاعتداء. فإذا توقف عن عدوانه هذا شأنه، نحن سنتوقف عن الرد عليه. أما ما يتعلق بموقفنا المساند للقضية الفلسطينية فلم يتغير ولن يتغير بإذن الله إلا بتحقيق الأهداف العادلة والصريحة والواضحة. وجاء الموقف العماني تتويجا لصلابة الموقف اليمني وفشلا صريحا وذريعا للعدوان الأمريكي الغاشم على بلدنا. واعترافا وقبولا بموقف اليمن المساند لفلسطين الذي هو مستمر، ونتيجة أيضا لفشل الضربات الإجرامية على بلدنا، والتي كان من نتائجها الفشل الذريع الذي تحدث عنه الكثير من المتابعين بما فيهم الأمريكان بأنفسهم. ولذلك فهذا الموقف الذي يتجلى اليوم هو موقف يعبر عن صلابة الموقف اليمني، وجاء طلبا أمريكيا عبر الأخوة في عمان، ونحن موقفنا من اليوم الأول أن يتوقفوا عن هذا العدوان، ولا علاقة لهم بموقفنا المساند للقضية الفلسطينية لا من قريب ولا من بعيد.
That video went viral and is on course to clock close to 200,000 views within 24 hours on YouTube. Guess what? Many hours later, even the BBC was forced to carry an identical report on its website, and I'm not making it up. So did Al Jazeera. This is the power of honest journalism. And you people, actually, who make our journalism so powerful by sharing our videos en masse. Let's first look at the BBC report on this topic. The headline by the BBC read, and I quote, Houthis say US backed down and Israel not covered by ceasefire. End quote. That's BBC headline. In other words, the BBC is also saying that Trump has thrown Netanyahu under the bus, albeit by using different language. Its report further added, and I quote, a senior Houthi official has rejected US President Donald Trump's claim the Yemeni armed group capitulated when agreeing a ceasefire deal, saying the US backed down instead. What changed is the American position, but our position remains firm, Chief Negotiator Mohammed Abdul Salam told Houthi-run Al Masira TV. End quote. It was Al Masira TV whose Abdul Salam had spoken to after Trump made those audacious claims, and whose clips I had used in my previous report last night, within hours of Trump making those claims. But the question is, why did the BBC do a follow-up story which would be so detrimental to Israel? An entity it just doesn't want to anger. An entity that its army of journalists have been bootlicking. The answer lies in the reach of our journalism. My contacts in the BBC say that the editors simply couldn't ignore this fact after seeing the growing reach of our video. Although the BBC story didn't go into as much detail as I had delved into in my report, it nonetheless captured the broader sentiments of the story. And not to be left behind was Al Jazeera, whose headline also read, and I quote, Yemen's Houthis say attacks on Israel not in US ceasefire deal in any way, end quote. And its report further added, and I quote, a ceasefire deal between Yemen's Houthis and the United States does not include any operations against Israel. The group's chief negotiator has announced. Mohammed Abdul Salam told the Reuters news agency on Wednesday that attacking Israel in any way, shape, or form in the agreement mediated by Oman. End quote. Isn't it amazing that what I could achieve being a one-man army, the likes of the BBC with billions of pounds of annual budget at its disposal and over 20,000 staff, could only achieve many hours later. There are reports that Trump was forced to seek peace with the Houthis following the Saudi intervention. Apparently, according to those reports, MBS didn't want the bombing to continue against the Houthis when Trump is visiting his country next week. But I do not give credence to this theory. Why? Because why would MBS bother about the bombing of the Houthis? It was his country. In fact, it was him on whose instructions Saudi Arabia ravaged Yemen for many years by dropping tons of bombs. If MBS had any power and concern for human suffering, he would have long used that to convince Trump or Israel to stop the slaughtering of Palestinians in Gaza. He hasn't done that. because he simply doesn't have that ability. In fact, that's my real gripe. Neither MBS nor anyone across the Gulf region have any power to wield over Israel or America. That's why I call them slaves. They have mortgaged their self-respect in exchange of lavish life. They will make tall towers. They'll make big malls and live lavish life. But who cares if millions of fellow Arabs are being butchered? In fact, I won't be surprised if Saudi Arabia soon announces restoring relationship with Israel. I can't trust them. You only have to go by their stance or their action, not too much in the past, in just last 2 years, 18 months to be precise, to understand the real face of these cowards, these slaves. Anyway, as I said, you haven't heard the last word on this story, and I promise to keep you posted as and when new developments take place. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.